my neck, blah 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 blah, just trying, almost drowning. So I have to walk 2 miles back to my truck, freezing. It's just no. My whole spring turkey season was nothing but misery.
The interest was gone.
Yeah, way gone. Speaking of interest, one thing that kind of interested me is you have a taxidermy shop.
I do.
So obviously being a hunter, you kind of know about the taxidermy world. How did you actually get into it?
Zach, I was a mechanic for 15 years. And I decided I was tired of doing that. And I actually had never really thought about taxidermy. And I was tinkering around on the computer one day and came across it and kind of got interested in it and decided I'd give it a whirl. And my cousin, the shop that I have now, or the business I have now, my cousin started in the early 70s. And a couple of years after I started taxidermy, he called me and said, I'm ready to retire. Would you want to buy this business? And we got it all hashed out, and I've had it for 11 years now. And I love doing it, and I'm glad that I'm doing it. So that's kind of how it came about.
You can tell that you love it because I was looking at some of your mounts, and they look fantastic.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
I know I've been looking at some other hunters that have had some mounts done.
Yeah.
One in particular sticks out. The guy, I don't know what the taxidermist did, but it looked like the guy's elk was kind of like laughing almost.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure he was going for an elk that was bugling.
Sure.
But it looked cartoonish.
Yeah, it happens.
Well, so how do you get that realistic look in your mounts? Because, I mean, they all look very natural.
I went to school for just a game head course for a couple of weeks and got the basics down. And then I've spent some time with different taxidermists over the first couple of years. I worked in a couple of other shops. And, it just, to me, you do have to have some artistic ability to make it, to make it work. And, if I look back on some of my older mounts, they all look decent, but I can for sure see the improvement in my work over the years. And I try to always improve my work when I'm doing stuff. And I love to watch other taxidermists work because I can always pick things up from them. And I'll think, why didn't I think of that? Why didn't, I enjoy being around other taxidermists and watching how they do things because it teaches me, where I might need a little improvement or whatever the case might be. And I've met some just fantastic people doing taxidermy.
Oh yeah, I'd imagine. I mean, it's a group of people that obviously enjoy all the things you enjoy, hunting, that artistic expression type.
Sure.
What's the process look like to get, let's just say, a mule deer mounted, like a neck mount? I've never seen anybody do one. I don't know how the process works.
Well, we very rarely do a neck mount. It's all pretty much shoulder mounts.
That's what I meant. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're okay. Because I know there are a lot of guys I've seen, especially older stuff, and even now you can still buy especially a whitetail neck mount. But, you bring it in, we have to flesh it, salt it. You turn the lips, the nose, the eyes. You got to turn the ears inside out. Then we salt it. 99% of maybe not 99%. A lot of guys are doing their own tanning now. I use a commercial tannery. Depending on the tannery, it might be 4 to 7 months before you get that hide back tanned.
Wow, that seems like a long time for some reason.
It It varies. And, on a year like this year with all that's been going on, it's going to be a little longer, just because of all the stuff going on. But then when we get it back, we measure it, and the hide's wet when we mount it. You have to, if it's a dry tan per se, you soak it up. You order your form. It's a polyurethane foam form. And then once you get your form in, you start, you have to use clay to model your eyes in and build your ear butts. And, depending on the taxidermist, they may do other clay work as well on the face to get more detail or, whatever you're looking for.
Yeah. So the reason you wet the hide, does it shrink to the mold once it dries?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then do you like sew or stitch the hide on, or does it just kind of slip over?
Depending on most of the stuff I get in is split from behind the head, back to the middle of the shoulder. So yes, I have to sew all that up.
So around here, I know there's a lot of elk, mule deer, pronghorn. Do you only do big game mounts, or do you do birds also?
90% of it's big game. I did some birds. I really don't do birds anymore, just because there's not a huge demand for me to do them. And there's a couple of guys here around where I live that do only birds, and they're very good at it. So to me, I usually either say, why don't you take it to so-and-so or such and such or whatever. But I have done birds in the past. But you have to get in a whole different mindset if you're going to do birds over mammals.
Really? Just because of the way the material work, like the feathers?
Yeah, it's a whole different process as far as mounting. Birds, if you have a good specimen, just make some of the most beautiful mounts, especially if everything's put together correctly and all your feathers are lined up properly, and they make a bird will make a beautiful mount if everything goes correctly.
Yeah, especially some of the birds around here. I know some of the grouse that I've seen. Is there a sage grouse?
Yes, yeah.
That's one of the craziest looking animals I've ever seen in my life.
They're cool. I like it. A ptarmigan's another one. It's a really pretty bird.
Oh yeah, ptarmigan. Yeah. Is that like a white?
They turn white in the wintertime, yes. Their feathers change in the wintertime. So yeah, they're a cool little critter too.
And another thing that surprised me, a lot of people duck and goose hunt.
Yep, there's some big time bird hunters around here.
For some reason, I didn't think about that whenever I moved.
Yeah, there's some. On this side of the mountain, we get the Canadian goose a lot. We hardly ever see snow geese here. They all come on the eastern side. But we get quite a few ducks.
I've never been a big goose or duck hunter. Where I came from, it just didn't get cold enough, and it didn't migrate whenever the season was happening.
Yeah.
So and the thought of laying in a muddy river bottom field just didn't appeal to me for some reason. What's your favorite animal to mount?
Oh man, that's tough. I really like doing elk a lot, but in the past couple of years, we've been doing a lot of bear rugs, and I like to mount bears as well.
And you get a lot of color phase bears here too, don't you?
Yes, we do get a lot of color phase bears. Yeah.
I've been seeing some game pictures of some of the cinnamon ones.
Yep.
And that's one of the prettiest bears I've ever seen.
Yeah, we get every now and then we'll get some really, really cool looking bears in for sure.
So, with your pack goats, we're going to move on to pack goats because I can't wait to talk about this. Are you afraid bears are going to get them when you're out in the woods? Because they seem kind of small and easy to get.
No, a bear doesn't worry me near as much as a mountain lion would.
I always forget about those stupid things.
And, when I first started looking into the pack goat thing, I've read several articles, if you will. The the biggest predator for goats when you're out on the trail is somebody else's dog.
Really?
Really.
I never would have thought of that.
Well, if you're on a busy trail with dogs that have never, been around them or anything, they say that's more of an issue. I've never had problems with anything, but they say that the dogs, if you're walking on a busy trail with somebody else's and somebody comes at you with a dog that's, they try to run at the pack goats. And I've read more stories about that than pack goats or than like a bear or a mountain lion or, up north a wolf or anything like that.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So what made you even decide to start looking into pack goats?
Well,
where'd you get the idea?
There again, I was fiddling around on the internet, and I saw it. I think on Facebook. I was watching something, and it says pack goats or some darn thing, and I got to looking at it, and man, I just got really interested in it, and I started looking at all the information and stuff like that, and my pack goats weren't really bred for conformation for a pack goat, and there's tons of information out there. So my guys are just your average kind of a goat. They're dairy goats because the dairy goats are bigger, and they're a hoot. I took them out today, and we got into a total disaster. I picked a trail on my Cotrex and thought, it was 2.5 miles long. I thought, yeah, this will be a breeze. And, we started down the trail, and, 30 minutes into it, we're in the trail. I can't find the trail. The deadfall is just horrible. And I'm going up and down around deadfall trying to, it worked us all pretty good. And, I'm out of shape. They're out of shape. So it was a pretty good workout for everybody involved before we finally got back where we needed to be.
You mentioned the breed of your goats, that they're just a standard kind of dairy goat.
Yeah.
Are there specific breeds for packing?
Yeah, but most people, and I've only been into this about a year, so I'm not the authority on it by any stretch, but most of them use a dairy breed or a dairy breed mixed with maybe some boar goat. But alpines are very popular. I have Saanen goats, which are the all-white goats. There is Oberhasli and Toggenburgs, and people use the Nubians as well. And they're all a pretty big, tall goat. They're not. Some of the meat goats are a little shorter to the ground. So when you're up like I was today in the deadfall and stuff like that, it's, and some of these goats, my goats are a 1.5 years old, and they're probably around 36 inches at the withers right now. And they probably weigh, I'm going to guess, 175, 180, 190 pounds.
So that's a pretty substantial goat, then.
Yeah. They get, and when you get into people that breed for pack goats, you get some pretty big goats. And they're, like I said, me and my goats are all what I call out of shape hikers. And so, but they do good. They did really good today. They'd never been in that kind of, deadfall and stuff like that. And they did well. It was when I finally dove down to the bottom of the creek and got back up on the road, because I figured it would take me another 2.5 hours or 3 hours to get down where I needed to be on that trail if I could find the trail. It just is a trail that I think the Forest Service has kind of let go and hasn't kept open, and it was quite the adventure for sure.
So what advantages do goats have over say like a llama, alpaca, a horse, or a mule?
Well, it's the main thing about a goat is they're very trainable. They can go a lot of places a horse and a mule can't go, just for sheer, they obviously can't pack as much. And I don't have anything against horses and mules. I've I've been around them my whole life as well. I've never really been around a llama, so I would hate to speak about that because I don't really know that much about them.
See,